take this information and apply it to our lives in a way that changes everything for us. That's what's important. The rich man, the poor man, the good man, the thief are what they are by virtue of the states from which they view the world. You don't have to be a thief. You don't have to be poor. You also don't have to be rich. It is completely up to you in your state of consciousness. The universe says, yes, why are you unhappy? I'm going to give you unhappiness, and then you're going to ask the question, and I'm not going to even show you why. Why are you unhappy? I don't know either, okay? Because you're missing your mark. The world only presents to you what your state of consciousness is capable of showing you. The world continuously gives you over and over and over again. The separation that they want you to be in so that you don't realize that we are all one consciousness connected in the first place. By the end of this video, there will be no more questions about manifestation. You simply won't have any. Neville Goddard breaks it down so perfectly in this chapter, Sealed Instructions, in the book Awaken Imagination. I'm gonna break it down perfectly. What's up, y'all? My name is Evan. I'm back with another video. If y'all have any questions, comments, concerns, leave it down in the email link below. And yeah, let's get straight into it, okay? Sealed instructions. First thing he says is the power that meets us at the threshold of the soul's domain is the power of imagination. Dr. Franz Hartmann. I was first made conscious of the power, nature, and redemptive function of imagination through the teachings of my friend Abdullah, and through subsequent experiences I learned that Jesus was a symbol of the coming of imagination to man. So a symbol of the rise of consciousness in man. That the test of his birth in man was the individual's ability to forgive sin. That is, his ability to identify himself or another with his aim in life. So your ability to close that gap between separation of I don't have what I desire. I want this, but I don't have it. I want this, but I hope I can get it. I'm gonna pray to God and hope that God gives me what I want, when the truth is my imagination is the God that I'm looking for. My imagination is the only one that can grant the wish of experiencing my desired reality. Okay, without the identification of man with his aim, the forgiveness of sin is an impossibility. The forgiveness of sin, the forgiveness of missing the mark. You can give yourself what you desire. Only you can. So if you were, for example, if you truly desire something and you go and you hope, maybe it'll happen, or I don't know, it's too hard, I can't do it. You're missing your mark. You are currently sinning. You can't rise to that level of Christ consciousness and have the faith, the knowing that you can experience everything that you desire. Okay? Forgive sin. Therefore, man's ability to identify himself with his aim, though reason and his senses deny it, is proof of the birth of Christ in him. To passively surrender to appearances, to circumstances, to the 3D, and bow before the evidence of facts is to confess that Christ is not yet born in you. All right, I think that's self-explanatory. Although this teaching shocked and repelled me at first, for I was a convinced and earnest Christian, I did not then know that Christianity could not be inherited by the mere accident of birth, but must be consciously adopted as a way of life. It stole later on through visions, my mystical revelations, and practical experiences into my understanding, and found its interpretation in a deeper mood. Once you rise in consciousness a bit and then you fall back down, you have no choice but to go back up. That's just how it works. It's like a slingshot. You can't go back into not knowing once you experience truth, because once you experience truth, it vibrates through your entire being. You just know this makes sense. You know that something you've been thinking this entire time has not been right. It just resonates with you. And once it resonates with you, you cannot go back to being blind. You cannot go back to sinning, basically, missing your mark. Okay? So it stole later on, practices, revelations, deeper mood. But I must confess that it is a trying time when those things are shaken up, which one has always taken for granted. Okay? He said, "Seize though these great buildings, there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." Those great buildings built in stone are the different things placed in your consciousness to keep you stuck, to keep you on a lower level of consciousness, to keep you from hitting your mark instead of missing your mark, instead of sinning, okay, instead of placing yourself in your desired reality. Now, he says, Not one stone of literal understanding will be left after one drinks the water of the psychological meaning. After you understand the meaning of Jesus Christ, what that means for your consciousness, what that means for accepting your desired reality, once you drink that water, you cannot go back to the old you. That's what I was saying. You cannot fall back in consciousness and then comfortably live happily ever after. Once your soul feels that resonance of truth, you can't go back. All that has been built by natural religion is cast into flames of mental fire. Yet what better way is there to understand Christ Jesus than to identify the central character of the Gospels with human imagination, knowing that every time you exercise your imagination lovingly on behalf of another, you are literally mediating God to man and thereby feeding and clothing Christ Jesus, and that whenever you imagine evil against another, you are literally beating and crucifying Jesus. Every imagination of man is either the cup of cold water or the sponge of vinegar to the parched lips of Christ. Let none of you imagine evil in the hearts against his neighbor, warned the prophet Zechariah 8:17. When man heeds this advice, he will awake from the imposed sleep of Adam into the full consciousness of the Son of God. When you accept that Jesus is meant to be symbolism for your awareness, whether or not he lived or not, whether or not he died and rose and came back again, I don't argue that, because all of that speculation has nothing to do with anything. It literally has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't benefit you in any way, shape, form, or fashion right now in this moment. It doesn't help you to be a better person. It doesn't help you to experience your desired reality right now. It doesn't at all. All of the speculation, all of the arguments, all of the debates, it doesn't help you at all. Okay, what we want to do is take this information and apply it to our lives in a way that changes everything for us. That's what's important. The back and forth is what the people in control here want you to, the state they want you to be in, the separation that they want you to be in, so that you don't realize that we are all one consciousness connected in the first place. All right, if you're living in separation even from other people because of their different ideas and things like that, you're already missing the mark. Let me get back on track. I'm over here ranting and stuff. I ask myself many times, if my imagination is Christ Jesus and all things are possible to Christ Jesus, are all things possible to me? Yes. Through experience, I have come to know that when I identify myself with my aim in life, then Christ is awake in me. Christ is sufficient for all things. I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down myself. John 10:17 and 18. What a comfort it is to know that all that I experience is the result of my own standard of beliefs, that I am the center of my own web of circumstances, and that as I change, so must my outer world. The world presents different appearances according as our states of consciousness differ. Okay, so when you ask, where is my shit? Why isn't this showing up yet? Why am I unhappy? The universe says, yes, why are you unhappy? I'm going to give you unhappiness, and then you're going to ask the question, and I'm not going to even show you why. Why are you unhappy? I don't know either, okay? Because you're missing your mark. The moment you decide I'm unhappy, if your goal is happiness, you're missing your mark. Go within and decide that you're happy regardless to what the outer world is showing you. The 3D is showing you, regardless to what your mind says, because that's where that programming is. The programming is in your mind. The programming is in the ego, okay? You think the ego runs the world when truly it is the 5D and your soul, and you're deciding, you're accepting ideas that the ego brings about. We're not doing that. We're not missing our mark. We're deciding that we're in our desired reality right now and forever, okay? What we see when we are identified with a state cannot be seen when we are no longer fused with it. So that doubt and that fear that comes along when you're in a state of lack is not the same doubt and fear that comes along when you're in a state of abundance. Okay, y'all? No idea presented to the mind can realize itself unless the mind accepts it. Well, I just said that, all right? It depends on the acceptance the state with which we are identified. How things present themselves in the fusion of imagination and states is to be found. The shaping of the world as it seems. The world is a revelation of the states with which imagination is fused. It is the state from which we think that determines the objective world in which we live. The rich man, the poor man, the good man, the thief are what they are by virtue of the states from which they view the world. On the distinction between these states depends the distinction between the worlds of these men. Okay, so the rich man and the poor man are the same man. They are the same man with the same consciousness, with the same Jesus Christ within them. And they can use that Jesus Christ, they could use their awareness to create their reality if they wanted to. You don't have to be a thief. You don't have to be poor. You also don't have to be rich. It is completely up to you in your state of consciousness. Live within that state of consciousness, and the 3D will have no choice but to reflect it back to you. Individually, so different is this same world. It is not the actions and behavior of the good man that should be matched, but his point of view. His point of view should be matched, not his actions. Outer reforms are useless if the inner state is not changed. Once again, once you enter that desired state of consciousness, you have no choice but to take the correct actions. You have no choice but to have the correct thoughts. You have no choice but to move in the direction of wherever your consciousness is, because that is literally how it works. The moment you step into a new state, your consciousness leads you directly to your desire, directly to where you need to go, because every action you take from the correct state of consciousness is going to lead you exactly to where you want to be. You're not missing the mark, so you have no choice but to experience what you want. Individually, so different is the same world. Outer reforms are useless if the inner state is not changed. Success is gained not by imitating the outer actions of the successful, but by right inner action and inner talking. If we detach ourselves from a state, and we may at any moment the conditions and circumstances to which that union gave being vanish. All right, I said this in like 2 videos ago or 1 video ago, but I said this exact same quote. The moment you attach yourself to a state, the union from the past state has to break away. The actions you took to get to that undesired reality break away. The beliefs that were surrounded by that undesired reality break away. That same doubt, that same fear, now it turns into courage. Now it turns into love. Now it turns into abundance over lack. Okay, that's what state we're moving into. This is how we're unbrainwashing ourselves in 2026, because it's been going for way too long. All right, it was in fall 1933 in New York City that I approached Abdullah with a problem. He asked me one simple question: what do you want? I told him that I would like to spend the winter in Barbados, but that I was broke. I literally did not have a nickel. If you will imagine yourself to be in Barbados, said he, thinking and viewing the world from the state of consciousness instead of thinking of Barbados, you will spend the winter there. You must not concern yourself with the ways and means of getting there, for the state of consciousness of already being in Barbados, if occupied by your imagination, will devise the means best suited to realize itself. So if you say I'm in Barbados, if you live like you're in Barbados, if every conscious action internally said I'm in Barbados, you will be there. Somebody will find a way for you to be there. But this story just gets more and more interesting. And if you are in like manifestation space, you've watched the videos before, you've already heard this story. But I'm gonna keep going. You must not concern yourself with the ways and means of getting there, for the state of consciousness of already being in Barbados, if occupied by your imagination, will devise the means best suited to realize itself. Man lives by committing himself to invisible states, by fusing his imagination with what he knows to be other than himself, and in this union he experiences the results of that fusion. No one can lose what he has, save by detachment from the state where the things experienced have their natural life. I don't know what the freak somewhere in my mind I lost track of what he was talking about, but we gonna keep going. Okay, you must imagine yourself right into the state of your fulfilled desire, Abdullah told me, and fall asleep viewing the world from Barbados. Okay, so when he says fall asleep viewing the world, that's the state akin to sleep. This is something that Neville Goddard always talks about. Fusing that imagination with kind of like reality, it makes your subconscious mind it imprints your subconscious mind, because when you're going to sleep, your conscious mind is not like buzzing and denying things all the time. So you can easily imprint that and have that turn into your identity because the subconscious mind is down. You're in like a theta brainwave state. All right. So the world which he describes from observation must be as we describe it relative to ourselves. Our imagination connects us with the state desire, but we must use imagination masterfully, not as an onlooker thinking of the end, but as a partaker thinking from the end. Okay, so I'm not thinking of my desired car, I'm thinking from my desired car. I'm seeing myself driving in my desired car every single day. Every time I wake up, instead of going to work in the car I don't like, I'm gonna go to work in the car that I do like. It's that simple. Okay, if we do this, our subjective experience will be realized objectively. Our subjective experience will be realized objectively, okay? So this is not merely fancy, said he, but a truth you can prove by experience. All right, you can prove this by experience. I proved mine by experience. I done manifested too much stuff, okay? And it just shows up. You can't explain it. This is not something that you can sit down and talk about and, well, this happened and that happened and that happened and boom, I had what I want. That's what it's gonna sound like. But when you experience it, you like, hold on, like how did that, how did these two things come together? Sometimes it just don't make sense at all. Like, ain't no talking about it because it just happens sometimes. But he said, this is not merely fancy, but the truth you can prove by experience. His appeal to enter into the wish fulfilled was the secret of thinking from the end. Every state is already there as mere possibility as long as you think of it, but is overpoweringly real when you think from it. Thinking from the end is the way of Christ. Thinking from the end is the way of Christ. Knowing is the way of Christ. Being the version of you that has it right now, being the version of you that is experiencing it right now is the way of Christ. I began right there and then fixing my thoughts beyond the limits of sense, beyond the aspect to which my present state of being gave towards the feeling of already being in Barbados and viewing the world from that standpoint. He emphasized the importance of the state from which man views the world as he falls asleep. All prophets claim the voice of God is chiefly heard by man in dreams. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon me, men, in slumbering upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction. Job 33:15 and 16. So this is the whole subconscious thing. Science has officially caught up to that and saying it's your subconscious mind, it's this, it's that, it's that. But basically, when you can go to sleep, imagine your desire. Look, if you're not in your desired reality, you should be doing everything. I'm talking about sats. I'm talking about just whatever. But while at the same time understanding that you are the power, okay? I am awareness. As long as I'm choosing my desire, I have no choice but to experience it, and every action is going to lead me there. But sats, amazing thing to try. This isn't really even, I wouldn't even say this is a technique, but this is like the technique. Like, before you go to sleep, just imagine it, just see it, and don't even think of it like a technique. This is just my life. I'm living it right now. Like, you're merging yourself with that reality, so much so to where this is what I'm experiencing right now, and then boom, it happens. Okay, that night and for several nights thereafter, I fell asleep in the assumption that I was in my father's house in Barbados. Within a month, I received a letter from my brother saying that he had a strong desire to have the family together at Christmas and asking me to use the enclosed steamship ticket for Barbados. I sailed 2 days after I received my brother's letter and spent a wonderful winter in Barbados. This experience has convinced me that man can be anything he pleases if he will make the conception habitual. Okay, habitual. This goes back to that brainwash, because when you're brought up, you're not taught to habitually think in your favor. You're taught to habitually worry, habitually doubt, habitually be concerned about how, habitually say, no, that's not possible. That's what you're taught to habitually do. So when you habitually go the other way, that's when you can experience everything you desire. Okay? This experience has convinced me that man can do anything he pleases if he makes the conception habitual and think from the end. Think from the end, not the beginning, not the middle. You don't need to think of how you're going to get what you want. Okay? Don't have to think of the check. Think of the reality you would have after you got the check. All right? It has also shown me that I can no longer excuse myself by placing the blame on the world of external things, that my good and my evil have no dependency except from myself, that it depends on the state from which I view the world, how things present themselves. Man who is free in his choice acts from conceptions which he freely, though not always wisely, chooses. All conceivable states are awaiting our choice and occupancy, but no amount of rationalizing will itself yield us the state of consciousness which is the only thing worth having. The state of consciousness is the only thing worth having because it is the only thing you will consider once you get to your desired reality. That is the only thing you'll be worried about. You know, how do I feel while I have this car? Everybody says when I bought this new car, you know, it was cool for a few months, and then after that, you know, the state kind of went away. It's almost like the state brought you the car, and because you didn't keep the state went away, and now it's like, okay, you know, the car is an everyday thing, but the state created the reality, right? Now, you having the car, you think the car is going to give you the state, when truthfully, it was the state that gave you the car. That's why when you get the car, you don't continuously feel the state, because the state comes from within and then the car comes from without. Does that make sense? Like the car came from the state, okay? The car did not come from some other magical place, and it's supposed to give you the feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have this car. No, the happiness comes first and then the car shows up. All right. I think that's it. I think we're going to pause for today. And we're gonna stop. I'm gonna save where I'm at, and we can read again tomorrow. 22 on the clock. We can read again tomorrow, but y'all, I think that is I'm not gonna lie, this was a good one. I love making these videos because it inspires me. Like, it gets me going, and it reminds me every single time. That's why I have to post every single day, because there was a quote in the book, what is it called? A Course in Miracles. And it explains that the teacher continuously gets better when the teacher teaches. You have to teach so that you can remain in the state of knowing all of this information. Because when you do, and when you're giving that information out, at the same time I'm giving that information to me, and I'm having the same realizations that y'all are having while watching this video. All right. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I love y'all oh so much. To the people that have been commenting, people that have been showing support, thank y'all so much, and I love y'all. All right, I'll catch y'all in the next video. See y'all tomorrow. Peace out. Oh, email gonna be linked down below. Peace out.